growing something that is broken doesn't get simpler, okay? The more you grow, a very easy business can become very complicated. Growing a business is one of the most expensive things you'll probably ever do. People see all the clients coming in and they think, wow, all this money's being made. It's very expensive to grow and to grow fast. Managing cash flow is critical, especially in times of rapid growth, because you can be a very rich business on paper, but you can struggle. If you don't want to have a good work-life balance, you're not gonna get it. You're gonna work as much as the company gives you, and as you grow a company, it will work you 24 hours.
Welcome to the Agathos Consulting Podcast. Today I'm honored to be joined by Luke Burrell. He's a good friend and he's also the Vice President of Eastline Pest Management. Luke, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to get started with your background. How did you get into your current role? And then maybe even before that, did you always want to be in leadership?
In high school, I took over my brother's business actually doing lawn care. I wasn't necessarily drawn to lawn care as much as I was drawn to general business. And so I knew that was the path I wanted to take. I didn't know exactly which route. So I had a great mentor in high school guide me, and my brother-in-law actually, and he recommended accounting. So I shot to college and started learning accounting. After I graduated and started working for a large organization, which you also worked for, it was there I started really developing my passion for analytics and realizing that it wasn't necessarily just numbers that I enjoyed, it was telling a story with them. That kind of started my path to getting my MBA, business analytics, and going further into that. However, my role that I had at that time was diving deeper into accounting. So I was going two different ways. I was seeing myself in analytics and studying numbers, and I was on the day-to-day, basically bookkeeping and batching and entries, and it just came to a fork. It was actually that was about 5-6 years ago that all that was going on, like where do I really want to take my career? Where do I see myself going? And I got connected with my wife's family. Her dad actually is the owner of this business. At that time, it was a smaller business, kind of mom and pop mentality. And he found out that I was looking at new options. So he had a enticing offer to come on and help him with some challenges that he was facing at that time, and growth strategies and where to go with the business. And we spent a lot of time talking before I ever made the transition to come here. I told him where I was at and what we were looking at. And anyway, we formed a relationship. We found that, okay, we could be mutually beneficial here and team up. And so I jumped ship and I took a chance.
So when you started at Eastline, what was your position? What did you start out doing?
That's a great question. I traded in my suit and tie and I went straight into service industry. I was full-time technician with the owner. You have to understand, this business was ran in every aspect by the owner. Okay, so there wasn't a structured business that I came into. It was a family-run company, and it was run, Scott was every position, basically. There were no employees. So when I came here, that was probably one of the most shocking things, is going from desk junkie, studying, to jumping out in the field and dealing directly with the public, environmental concerns, health hazards, and fixing issues at large. That was probably one of the most interesting things, and a challenge, because it makes you question, is this where I want to be? This isn't what I had in mind. I went to college, I got all this education, and where do I want to go with this? But I fell in love with it. He has over 30 years experience in pest control and dealing with structural pest and residential issues, commercial issues. And I saw that this goes a lot deeper than what I initially anticipated when I came here. And we formed a good team. He had a lot of the industry specific knowledge because he's just been doing it for so long. But I came in with a lot of the business background and was able to figure out how we wanted to structure the company and take on a massive shift culturally, strategically, for the whole business to get us to where we are now and where we're headed.
So tell me the story about how you were able to come in and actually help scale the business to 7 figures.
When I started, the whole business was on 3x5 cards, notebooks, and there was no computer systems. There was no internal structure. For me, I think one of the biggest shifts that I did is me, in an accounting background, the first thing I did is I wanted to look at the finances. What kind of money we making, what's coming in, what's going out, and what kind of shifts can we do for the company. When I started looking at the books, I saw a lot of funds going toward marketing and expansion, but for a business that wasn't prepared for market expansion. One of my first big moves when I came on is I slashed the marketing budget. I told the owner that really the best thing to do right now is not really to promote the business, but to structure the business and get it prepared. Most guys, when they go on their entrepreneurial journey, they jump in and they start something from scratch. So you have that benefit of, let's create a CRM system, ERP, structure your standards and your policies. I came into a company where none of that was created, but they were running. The customers were there. I had to take a look at it and say, okay, do we want to keep growing? It's the confusion, the structure. Are we ready for going from several 100,000 to millions? And so the larger part of the beginning of my career was focusing on the financial aspect, and I moved a lot of money out of promoting the business and structuring the business. So I implemented our first CRM system, getting our customer service representatives, how can we streamline communication? And that's where we're doing texting customers, calling customers, multiple channels, and analyzing the customers that are coming in. Why are they coming in? I was big into that, especially as we started, was just creating the software and the processes that could maintain growth. And it's a continual journey. Even today, we have our CRM, we have our ERP system per se, policies and standards. Something I'm implementing right now as we speak, as we're doing 7 figures, is task software. Implementing software that manages task flow through the business as we grow. So it's a never ending thing. But for me, focusing on creating the structure for the business and almost like futuristically thinking, all right, this business is going to do $3, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9 million a year. What do we need to do now to sustain that? And I don't know, maybe just having employees think that way and myself thinking that way.
So do you think, because we've got CEOs watching this, and there's probably similarities between your experience and theirs, where they come into a business that's already got its own culture, its own way of doing things, and then they have to come in there and put systems in place and help scale it. Do you feel like that's the best way to scale, is you create systems and processes and then you start pouring money into the marketing and everything?
It depends what the business is like when they come on.
Yeah.
Some businesses at large are already focusing in those areas. The situation I was in, it was not. I had no choice but to focus on streamlining. But I love operational efficiency. I like it. It makes it easier, I will say. Growing something that is broken or is not clean, it doesn't get simpler, okay? The more you grow, a very easy business can become very complicated. So I would say, if you're confused on how communication runs or whose job does what, and do you handle this or when does it go here, if you're not answering those questions at 1 million, you're going to be really a lot worse off if you go to 10. So for me, I like simplicity. We're a service industry. It's not a hard business. It's a very simple business. But you can make a simple business very complex. Trying to keep that at the forefront and making sure communication is strong is helping us across the board, even on the customer side. A lot of people would argue that as you grow, you lose that the fear of losing your customer relationships that you had and developed through being that small business that can focus on each and every need. And I feel like as we've grown, we've actually been able to expand in those areas.
How do you ensure that as you scale, you don't start dropping your quality of the service or your customer service? How do you keep the quality up while you scale?
That's a great question, and very difficult, because you're right. As you are in a service business, you're having to work with people. A lot of that goes into your talent acquisition and hiring. We have a set of core values and where we want our business to be and the people we want along our side as we grow. I spend a lot of time hiring and not rehiring. We have awesome employee retention rates. I think a lot of that is because I spend so much time. Every person that is working for us right now and currently in a role has gone through me, and we've had one-on-one conversations. And I try to keep hiring informal as well as formal, but I want to know who is coming onto my team because I handpick my team. I tell them that. You're here for a reason. You have these strong attributes or qualities that are going to help us in these areas and grow our business in these ways. So if people don't fall into those categories, don't bring them on your team. We do not hire the first person that comes knocking on our door and says, hey, I have 20 years in pest control, hire me. In fact, I would argue a lot of my guys are like, hey, I have no experience in pest control, but this is my background. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is very powerful for these areas.
So I'm curious, like you could have someone that's has a great personality, he's a great person, but just isn't a good fit for the job. Do you have certain parameters that you're looking at, or do you look at personality tests to look at how to build the team?
I think eventually as we grow, the personality tool is something we do after hire, not before. Now, definitely something that that's business. You're constantly developing. But again, when you're bringing someone on, and the reason I didn't do it at the beginning is because people have a tendency to lie and make their personality what they want it to be to get a job. Whereas if you already have the job and I'm doing a test and just want to get to know you, they're a little bit more apt to be honest. But one thing we do, and I don't know if all business, it's not for all business, but specifically for the service industry, part of our hiring process is you go through me for a couple of times and then you're going to go through the team. Team's going to get to know you. A lot of that's very relaxed. It's not a formal setting. They're just getting to know each other. But I think one of the crucial things, especially for people that don't have a background in this, we love to put them in the field and give a job shadow day and see if it's something that they could see themselves doing. Most of my guys, when they went through that process, we try to find the worst situation and we put them in that situation with an experienced person and see how they respond. I have been in some crazy situations with potential employees, actually just this year, massive infestations that are not pretty to look at, and having to get in there and create sanitation standards and IPM plans, and getting those new people in there and say, take these notes, do these things, tells you real quick, and you'll see it in their face like, no, this isn't for me. We don't like to take the risk of hiring someone and putting them out in the field and then say, let's see how it goes.
I hadn't heard of people doing the shadows before even hiring. I've always heard of you hire someone and you give them like a 90-day until they're actually agreed to go full-time or whatever. So that's a cool idea. It's an investment on your part, spending the time to have the person there, but probably helps save you the 90 days of waste.
And again, our employees are dealing directly with the public. Is it worth 90 days of risk of whatever the employee decides to let the public hear or say? It's very hard for us to manage that side of our technicians because they are out. They're almost like representatives. They're going out. So you have to put a lot of trust in them. We found it easier just to put them in those hard situations up front and see. And again, it's worked.
Once you hire them, I know hiring's very expensive compared to retaining lots of times. How do you keep your good employees once you've hired them? And what do you do to help them stay there and be satisfied?
For a business like what we're doing here, it's going to attract people that are eager for growth. People that don't like change are probably going to struggle a little bit here because we change. You go from this year and going into next year, we're implementing things right now. Like I told you, task software. We're doing a whole new phone system overhaul to better integrate those customer profiles and keep everything communicating through one channel. We're developing constantly, and you have to. So for our team and maintaining talent, we find that young, eager individuals that are looking for growth are going to do well here. So I look for that. We do have older gentlemen that come on, and I treat them like the experts of the industry. I find their niche. What are they passionate about? What are they good at? Why do they love what they do? And that's just communication. And then putting them in those roles and then having the younger guys go with them and see if those are areas that they would also see themselves in. Talent acquisition for us is also partly pay. Talent retention. Yeah. Once we bring someone on and we feel like they're really a part of the team and will do well with this company, we're growing and we're growing fast. And I even think for the guys and ladies that are listening to this, if they are on my team, would know that if they looked at the day they started here and the things they were doing and look at where they are now, and if any of them have been here for more than 1 or 2 years, would say that a lot has happened. And they're in roles that they didn't even know would exist. For us, I think part of maintaining retention is the excitement of getting in with a super small business and watching it just launch, and then seeing where you fit in those areas and where you grow with the business. So it's actually easier to maintain employees when you're small and growing fast because roles just develop quickly. Growing a business is one of the most expensive things you'll probably ever do. You know, people see all the clients coming in and they think, wow, all this money's being made. It's very expensive to grow and to grow fast.
So you probably are reinvesting any additional revenue right back into the growth to fund it.
You have no choice. It's that or constantly applying for loans because for me, let's see, in 3 months, I pretty much bought a truck every month. That's a lot of money going out, and then having to hire employees. And again, that's not every month. We've won a large military bid, so we're trying to outfit that contract. But yeah, in general, yes, growing is very expensive. A whole lot more expensive than just maintaining a business, for sure. Yes, we constantly are having to reinvest in the business, and a little bit of that is scary, but I think over the long haul, it would be worth it. I tell the owner, because he questions, he likes the old saying, I made a lot more money when it was just me. What's the point of all this? And he has a point, but to me, there will be a point where things will balance. But growing from a couple 100,000 to 150 to 160, it's hard to make a life change or improve and give employees. One of my biggest motivations to keep growing is no longer really where I want to be. It's where do my guys want to be. If I have a guy that tells me, hey, Luke, young, eager, I want to do these roles, I want to be in this position, I want to see what I can do to put him there. And I know to get him in that position is a lot of work, and it's a lot of planning and prepping and moving. And sometimes they don't always see that, but that's like my new thing. It's not necessarily where I want to be, but knowing where they want to be. And with that, it naturally pushes me up, but I don't really need it. I'm happy. I guess you could say they motivate me to keep going.
That's good. So what, during this process of scaling, and I know you're still scaling, what have been some challenges that you faced and things that didn't go the way you're expecting, and what have you learned from those?
Challenge, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, the challenge, there's always going to be a challenge in business, and they always seem to get bigger. If we're rapidly growing as a business, cash flow is a critical aspect. I know for digital companies, it may have already subscription payments or package plans. It may not be as issue, but for us, as we're winning largely like commercial clients and big clients and big contracts, the timing of revenue doesn't always align with the timing of your expenses and what cash flow is moving. So managing cash flow is probably one of my big things right now. That's a current challenge. And what are we doing to improve AR collection strategies? Should we offer incentive programs? And then being very clear on communicating to our customers around billing parameters. But like I said, the experience of growing rapidly has taught me that growing revenue and pacing it's really also about pacing cash flow and then creating a balance with your finances. As you grow and as revenues pour and you think all this money is there, but all these expenses don't align. And so managing cash flow is critical, especially in times of rapid growth, because you can be a very rich business on paper when you look at a P&L necessarily, and depending on the timing, but you can struggle if you're not careful.
Because you haven't collected all that in?
Yeah, exactly. Like on paper, and I'll give you an example. A military contract is a perfect example. We do military, local government, federal government, so we do a lot in this area. Dealing with the military, they're consistent, but we just took on a contract just recently. And we have to spend, because I know you have to think, when service industry, in our industry, you have to have the fleet, the vehicle, the employee, which then requires workers' comp benefits. So it's very expensive to get that guy in a vehicle to that location and then to start performing services. and then they're doing a net 30 based off the 30 of your last. So we could be delayed 60, 75 days out before our first payment goes in. We're thousands of dollars in. If you take that and then you multiply it by 10 contracts coming in, you have massive cash flow issues, but you look like you're going to be very successful. So you manage that timing of when. My accounting background has been critical there, I would say, because we have done phenomenal at keeping our employees paid well, outfitting vehicles, and growing, and being good financial stewards for our business and reinvesting it at the right strategic times to take on the right clients.
What are some strategies so far to bring in cash flow? I don't know if for service space, what might be some ideas for other CEOs that are struggling with that right now too?
Yeah, for us, we're willing to take on that initial capital investment of growing into that next level for commercial. For residential, so it depends. Like if you're willing with commercial clients, especially like government agencies and stuff, you're not going to call their accounting department and get them to change their payment terms very easily. But where you can thrive, and for us, is we're bobbing that like 60, 70% residential, 30, 40% commercial. And the residential clients are the ones that kind of feed the day-to-day. A lot of our, and reoccurring revenue, I will add. If you're a service business, please maintain your reoccurring revenue clients. If your business is not structured around reoccurring revenue, enjoy it, because that's tough. I would always want to work for a company that it's about maintaining clients, acquiring them, maintaining them, and keeping them on a reoccurring schedule than one time. And we can go into those if you want, but that's how I do everything here. It's about reoccurring revenues and relationships and preventing problems rather than just solving problems. So for our industry in pest control, we can prevent infestations from occurring by doing reoccurring regular maintenance rather than you only call us when you have an issue. It's more expensive to solve, it's harder to solve than being a preventative business approach.
And then you've got the subscription, or you've got the recurring coming in.
Exactly. So the residential feeds primarily. Now again, we have residential collection issues and we're working on that, changing up our game. Like new clients, we really don't like to do payment terms on residential maintenance contracts unless they're very large, which is very rare. But if you're a small business, one critical thing, and it seems so simple, but implementing it across a business can be difficult. If you call in now, we're already asking you. Before, we acted like we'll deal with their problem and then collect. We want to be that service industry, but we found now it's actually better in our situation and where we're at to go ahead and state those parameters up front and say, hey, once they book a service, we'd like to go ahead and get a credit card on file. However, if you want to pay on site, that's perfectly fine. We give them some options, but communicating those payment terms along with the value of our service, when the technician comes on site, it's not such an awkward interaction because we are in person. Yeah. For some people, they struggle to do work and then say, hey, I need to get paid, which seems odd, but believe me, it can be an issue for some of these guys. They'll go do 10, 12 stops or go see several clients and they don't even talk about money. So then I'm working on the back end to try to fix those issues.
Do you offer any incentives for like auto pay discounts?
We don't offer a discount on auto pay, maybe something to develop. We do offer discounts on paying up front. So let's say you sign on an agreement for a set term. If you want to go ahead and settle all that up front, we'll give you a significant break. But it doesn't discourage those that don't do it.
Yeah.
So if you don't choose that option, we just put your payment terms in. Shockingly, just talking about payment terms significantly increased our collections rather than doing the service and then like bringing it up after the fact, which I'm sure the other business owners are laughing at me right now, but that's the way it used to be done. So I just kept growing and I was like, wait a minute, we're not collecting. And so we had to reword and restructure that, and still a continual thing that we work on.
Since you work in structural pest control, how do you differentiate yourself from other businesses in the area? What's different about Eastline?
We have a kind of a unique position, I believe. I'm not a huge marketing guy in sales, and probably a good thing because we're growing as fast as I can handle it right now. We are in a smaller community, so oddly enough, word of mouth is still huge. I know I hear that and I'm like, oh, that's old school. We need to be focusing on Google and ratings, which are a form of local trust. And that's like a referral. But I will say that it is a powerful business that's still true to this day within the service industry, and if you're trying to work within your community. However, for us, I would say one of our biggest competitive advantages is being able to offer customizable solution, and we do not do a one-size-fits-all approach to pest control. And other companies that are in my industry may know this, but for a lot of our things, it's almost like you're taught one way to fix a lot of solutions. And for us, we try to step back from that, and it goes with our industry motto, that IPM, Integrated Pest Management. Identifying and looking for solutions before we just act has been a critical aspect of our business that has helped us improve so significantly, especially with commercial clients. And that's where we really have grown significantly over the past couple of years, is focusing on taking that customer focus aspect and applying it to commercial clients. Our industry is split. We have a lot of small mom and pops, and then we have several almost monopoly massive companies. There is not a lot of middle ground. For commercial clients, they actually pay the biggest price because they have no choice, because mom and pop businesses do not have the insurance, the worker comp policies, or the manpower to solve their problems. So they only can go to national brands. For us, we saw a competitive advantage there. If we can apply customer focus, customer feedback, and solving problems up front, like I said, creating preventable solutions that prevent infestations instead of constantly trying to treat problems, and apply that to commercial clients, we might have something there. So what did I do? I went and bought the policies and everything that we needed that would make us competitive on a big scale. We don't need it for residential, not at the level that we went. And then introducing ourselves to some of these commercial clients, and that has worked a lot. My excitement is also knowing that we're working. It's great to solve one person's problem at their home when they have a big issue, and a lot of it, the sanitation and maybe some exclusion work and things that could be prevented at that home. But then applying that where you're working for an entire city is very exciting for me personally. Like, beyond payment terms and structure and all that, taking things on a big scale and throwing yourself out there as a company and being like, hey, we would be willing to take on this challenge. This is what we can do. We can create this custom package to fix these problems. And then, by the way, this is how we're going to try to prevent it from ever happening again. And then winning that is really fun.
Does the custom package make it difficult to train people coming in? Because I feel like if you have these packages, people could learn how to do those 3 different packages. And so custom, you really have to know what you're doing well to be able to tailor it to the customer.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. For us, when we're dealing with commercial clients, and that's why earlier, like we were talking about growth in our business, that's where those 2, 3, 4, 5-year guys, those guys, so everyone kind of starts on residential, learning the business and how everything runs. When the big clients come in, or when we have to do a little bit of restructuring in order to service those needs, like you said, custom packages, yes, it requires someone, and that's actually part of what I'm fully licensed, but I'm continuing my education to get further certifications. I don't know if all companies would like this, but I actually enjoy going out on field and creating those packages. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. Your employees do have to be more educated in the industry, but I'm not sending my employee out there by themselves and saying, hey, they have a big problem across a wide span of areas. It's more, okay, I'll go out there, or we'll have a licensee on site assessing and creating packages, and then we have the employee force to then implement that, if that makes sense.
So essentially your salesperson has to know enough to build the custom package, and then you've got the person actually doing the work that just does what the package is, right?
Yeah, we actually don't have a salesman. We do have a business development manager who or customer success manager, however you want to label them. He's, if you want to say, sales, but we don't run door to door and try to promote business constantly. Customer success manager, I guess, would be a great term. He is there to make sure that we succeed in everything that we're doing for that customer. So he would be our closest thing to a salesman. But in our industry, when you say salesman, it can mean a lot of different areas of like door to door or high pressure.
Yeah.
The owner is far against that, and we just never, and probably never will go that model of, hey, let's hire 10 salesmen and hit this area and then dump technicians in and start working. It's just not what we do. We're more of a small custom packaging plan
Gotcha.
that we work through.
So how, since you've arrived, have you influenced the culture? Have things changed about the culture? And then maybe what are some cultural challenges that you've had to overcome?
I didn't have to do massive cultural shifts in an existing company outside of just directly working with the owner and saying, this is the things that we need to do in order to improve. I think for us, the biggest cultural shift for us is trying to balance like that traditional practice of how things are done while implementing new ideas. We have a traditional way of doing things, but we try to say, but this isn't the way we always have to do it. And because people do like to get stuck in there, like, this is how I've done it. So we try to, balance between traditional practice and always looking to improve and create new ideas. But for me, as long as, including myself and my guys, are, promoting a positive work environment, which we are huge on here, and bringing good ideas forward, which I will say my team is great at, because I'm not going to see everything that's going on, but I have a very close relationship with a lot of my guys, and they will sit and talk to me like, hey, I had this idea, this is where we could go with it. And having that creative space that we can all brainstorm and work comfortably in is healthy for us, and at this point in our size of business has helped us in just the whole cultural aspect.
Do you have any tactical ways to try to encourage people to innovate or bring up new ideas, or is that just a culture? People mention it as they have them?
If it's a good idea and it's a big idea that we end up implementing, it does come across we do team meetings and stuff, and we'll call that person out and say, hey, look, so-and-so brought up this idea, awesome idea, and this is how we're going to do, and this is how it's going to improve things. Funny thing is, most people, their ideas benefit them too. So it works out for them and it works out for the team, but we just promote it. We don't necessarily, have strategy to encourage it even more. It's just by nature, the team that we have and the way we work, we bounce ideas off. I don't know if that's a top down or a bottom up thing, but it's true. Like, when we go out on a big contract, sometimes I'm stumped and I'm like, hey, I got a guy that's been doing this for 20 years. I got a guy that's been doing this 30 years. So I'm going to call them and I'm going to tell them what's going on, and they may be like, hey, we should do this. And that's actually the beauty of growth and being like a medium-sized business, is you're not so big that there's a lot of corporate red tape and you can't really get to who you need to talk to. I can be talking to licensees and ACs and IPM guys that know all this stuff to the bones, and we can communicate through a problem pretty quickly here, because we don't have 100 meetings that we're going to every day and unavailable because they're at a corporate event. Like, it's not like that here. So communication runs through this company fast.
That's great. So I want to shift a little bit from your professional life to your personal life, because I know any founder or entrepreneur or someone that's scaling a business is probably pretty busy. So I'm curious if you have any advice for people on like work-life balance, because I know you've got wife and 3 kids, right?
3 kids?
Yeah,
No.
awesome. So any advice you have for how you manage all those responsibilities and not burn out?
For me personally, I go in waves. But sometimes I'll get really focused on the company. And anyone that's running a company, probably, if they're passionate about it, is probably similar. It's hard to put it down, like really hard. You get the kids down, you're popping on that computer, the phone. I hate phones. I'm constantly checking over emails, and technology is beautiful, but it's a curse. It is on my computer, it's on my phone. Every software I run is also connected with notifications to my phone. It can drain you, and it has drained me many times in the past. For me, work-life balance, you have to want it, because growing a business is very exciting and it's a lot of fun. So if you don't want to have a good work-life balance, you're not going to get it. I say that because you're going to work as much as the company gives you, and as you grow a company, it will work you 24 hours. So you have to want, first off, to have that work-life balance. And I say most people say they do, but do they really? Like, Because if you really are focusing on this is going to be family time, are you hiring those people in the back office that are able to take those tasks off for you? Are you delegating, training, and prioritizing your life? Or are you just, I can do that, I need to be the one that does that? So to me, you have to want it. And that's been a shift for me. My wife will shoot me a text or call at 4 or 5 o'clock if I'm not home. And that is rare for people in my position. There'll be days I work 6, 7, 8 o'clock, but honestly, even that's not really that bad considering some people in my roles. Some things that I've done to kind of help with work-life balance is back office support. That's a newer thing for me this year, is whether it's you want to in-house it and find men and women that want to work in those roles here, or if you want to try doing like virtual assistants and things like that. But those have helped me out a lot in reducing how many times do I check an email today? Is that necessary? One of the biggest things I would say for anybody that's an entrepreneur, have you ever written down everything that you've worked through the day and then put a time on it and see, is this what I want to be doing? I spent 3 hours responding to emails. Is it necessary to do my role? Can someone filter through those first? Same thing with reporting. Should I be running the reports? Do I just need to see the reports? As you grow, those things start to shift fast. So for me, delegating, training, giving other people the opportunity, and realizing that family is important and work-life balance is very important. And I would say I have also fostered to my team, I respect their PTO request, respect mine. And honestly, I have a great team that does. My wife and I just went to Colorado. We did a business event, and I'm running the business. And honestly, maybe 1 text, maybe 2 texts a day of something critical that went down.
That's awesome.
And that doesn't happen because we just had a good week. That's because I've fostered a team that respects, hey, Luke's not available right now, and we're going to focus on how can we solve this ourselves. And then also me forcing that to happen. But it doesn't happen naturally. I will say that. And you have to want it to happen. And it's something I continue to work toward. Like I told you, some of the books I read about work-life balance and better time management, because time becomes everything. You only got 24 hours. So what you do in that 24 hours as you grow in a business, and especially, talking to guys that are doing like 15, 20, 30 million a year, like their time it's a lot more valuable to mine, and it's hard to get everything done. So you have to set boundaries.
I've seen people kind of 2 camps. There's these groups of entrepreneurs or business leaders that say, just work extremely hard, and the harder you work, the better you'll do. And then there's another group that sets boundaries around their work and just says, I'm going to stop when my boundary is, and if I don't make as much, oh well. I'm curious which camp you fall into. Is it even possible to be that second group?
Yeah, absolutely. The owner's a prime example of that himself. He worked for the better part of almost 20 years and never hired an employee. He did not want to. He did not want that type of stress, that growth. For a young person, they're probably screaming in their soul because they're like, how could you not want to grow and have all this freedom? The owner had a lot of freedom. He did as he pleased. He served the community and maintained his hobbies. He probably would argue he had better work-life balance then than now. For me, I'm an eager guy, so I want to grow and have fun with it. One way, and you say constantly outpacing the next guy. That's a great way to burn out. How about having a team? I could try to outpace you, outwork you, and I have that mentality in some ways deep down, because I'm like, I will put in the work, and when you win, you feel good because you're like, man, I've busted out all-nighter, won this contract. Like, it makes you feel good, but is it healthy? Is it sustainable? I would say a critical thing that I've done, and it's really easy, you start off with 100 hats, and then you realize you're really probably only good at 10 to 15 of those hats, but you have to do 100 hats. But as you scale, you start taking those hats. You may think you're better than everybody else at these things, but I'm only like a quarter of the way doing all the jobs. So you have to let it go. And so for me, finding the right person I want to hire someone that's better than me. I love finding someone that can supervise someone and lead them and do cultural aspects of how they develop their team better than I could, because they have more time to focus on it. I hire specifically off what's bogging me down. And then I try to find the roles that'll fit around it. So like when I first started, I was a heavy technician. So guess what? I started hiring right off the bat. I didn't hire a secretary. I didn't hire accountants. I hired technicians because that's what I was doing all day, and sat with them and trained them and worked with them and did the jobs with them. Then I realized, man, I'm in the office all the time and all I do is bookkeeping and doing paperwork. So what did I do? I find bookkeepers and paper. For me, all I do is put someone better in that role. And then I just keep moving, not necessarily, I guess, up, but to me, it's more like they can do it better. They can report to me what I need to know. So if you're not doing that or you have fear in that, that can be dangerous. And I do that pretty much with everything. I might even outsource my role now and just keep going. Really, ultimately, that's how I do it personally. If I'm bogged down and that is taking up my week, I've got to get someone in here, because as soon as that gets off my plate, it just seems like we grow more efficient and faster. I have a great team. My team is the reason we're able to grow like we are. It's not anything I'm doing necessarily. But as we grow, constantly finding people that are better than me in that job, I don't know, just like the things I'm focusing on, it's like we keep growing faster the more I find better talent than myself. So if you're prideful and you think you should do everything yourself, there's a lot of talented people out there. And there's a large work pool. And I know a lot of employers say they struggle with employees, but I personally have not had that experience.
If you could hire all the other roles and you just had one thing you get to do all day, what would that be?
Oh, man, there isn't one role I just want to do all day. I will get bored. I'll be honest with you. I think a healthy balance of many roles is what's most fun about a business and challenging. As much as I hate challenges, I love them, because it forces you to think. I think working as an accountant for 3 years doing the same thing every day just scarred me. So I just really enjoy changing things, and not necessarily changing business things. If they're running and efficient, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna mess with it, but there's always a challenge in a business. So I wouldn't say there's one thing that I necessarily love, but more than everything else, I will say I'm enjoying the day where I'm more of just reviewing the business aspect and making sure things are running efficiently, getting to that point of being able to look down in the business and then jump into the business in the areas that are critically in need of something that I need to do. That would be fun to me, to look down in the business, run the business, and see that everything's running well, and then dive down in the areas that I need to be in. But the beautiful thing of that is they don't really need you at any point in time in any area. Yeah. But we'll see. Awesome. I'm not there yet.
Well, as we close, I just wanted to ask, for people that are local there in North Carolina, how can they find out about Eastline Pest Control?
Probably the easiest thing is Google. You can Google Eastline Pest. We're probably going to pop up pretty quickly on the list. We have a great reviews and everything, so it helps us out a lot. But yeah, and if you need to reach us directly, we have office staff. You can call in, shoot an email. There's chat options. We are a service industry, so hopefully getting a hold of us, it shouldn't be difficult.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much for joining, Luke. It's great talking to you.
Thank you.